Hey guys, it's Miles from Milesfit, and you're watching episode number 5 of the Ask Miles show, where I answer your health, fitness, lifestyle, and motivation questions. All right guys, it's Friday. This is episode number 5. We're pushing this stuff on. So what we're going to do, we're going to answer another 3 awesome questions that I received about health and fitness, whereas previous episodes had more to do with nutrition. These questions actually have more to do with training. So if you're interested in fitness and you want some practical tips that you can use, now is the time you've been waiting for. So let me pull those questions up. The first question that we have today, so are squats the best exercise for building your legs? Great question. So here's the first thing. We often like to figure out what the best exercise is for a given muscle. But here's the fact of the matter. The best exercise for a given muscle is whatever we need at that specific time. So there's no one best exercise that is going to do the job in every and all cases. It really is person dependent. Now, of course, the squats are a compound and complex movement, and there's no question that they're up there in terms of the top exercises, but what does that mean, the best exercise? So are you looking to build the most amount of muscle mass? Are you looking to improve your running performance? Are you looking to deal with knee pain or a knee injury or something like that? So the specific goal or the specific outcome will really define and determine what the best exercise is. And rarely is it one exercise. It's a collection of exercises. And beyond that, it's also probably some corrective stretches and some other components that have to be included as well. We would love that the solution that we're looking for is one exercise. Oh, just add in squats and all of a sudden all your leg training goals will be achieved and taken care of. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So for the question, are squats the best exercise for your legs? Let's look at it in a couple different lights and dissect that a little bit. So I'm assuming that this question is being asked in the sense of, are squats the best way to build up your leg strength and your leg muscle? From that perspective, squats are excellent. Why? Because they're a compound and complex movement, they're going to involve a lot of different muscles. And by involving a lot of muscle groups and engaging a lot of muscle fibers, you're going to basically create an adaptation where your body will either build a lot of lower body strength and leg strength, and or build up your leg musculature and muscle mass. What really determines whether you're going to build strength or whether you're going to build muscle are the loading parameters. What I mean specifically by loading parameters, how many sets are you doing? What kind of range of motion? What kind of tempo? What kind of rep range? And what kind of rest periods? Those variables will ultimately determine the adaptation of the muscle groups involved. So I'll give you some examples. If you keep your reps more in the 10 to 12 rep range with a 60 to 90 second rest period for your squats, and you're working at about 4 sets, that type of loading parameter would be more conducive towards hypertrophy, which basically means building up your leg musculature. Obviously, there will be strength adaptations as well. However, that would be more geared towards building muscle mass. But let's say your goal was to build strength in your legs, especially relative strength, which is being stronger pound for pound per unit of weight. Well, if your goal was to do that, maybe you would want to do the classical 5 sets of 5 method with anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes of rest depending on the person. So by lifting heavier weights for less repetitions with more rest in between sets, you'll have more of an adaptation of strength taking place in the lower body and the legs. Of course, there will also be muscle mass that will be built, but you'll be leaning more towards building strength. So with that said, you can see that by manipulating the variables of training, sets, reps, rest period, tempo, etc., you can change how the muscle responds and adapts to the type of training. So going back to the question, are squats the best leg exercise? Well, we're analyzing that first in the context of, are squats the best leg exercise to build muscle mass and build strength? They're definitely in the top 3, no question about that. They've been done forever, they've stood the test of time, and pretty much anybody that squats regularly and squats hard and integrates squats as a real serious component of their routine certainly has leg training results, no question about that. But we cannot forget about the great deadlift. A lot of people shy away from the deadlift because it's a movement that is harder to cheat with. What I mean by that is that you pretty much are forced into full range of motion if you're picking the weight up from the floor. If your starting point is the floor, you have to start from the floor. And the deadlift means picking up the weight until you're completely stood upright, and that's the end of the movement. Whereas with the squat, a lot of people can cheat by chopping the range of motion, doing quarter squats or 1/3 squats or even half squats. And by the way, I'm not saying that partial range of motion is bad when it comes to training. Partial range of motion is a great tool in your toolbox to overload a muscle group. The only thing is that most people that are using partial range of motion when it comes to training are typically cheating. It's rare that you ever go up to someone who's doing partial range of motion, for example, quarter squats, and ask them, hey, why are you using that technique? And getting a response in the ballpark of, well, actually, I'm using partial range of motion to overload the muscles in a different way than normal to solicit new muscle fibers and create new muscle growth and stimulation. You'll rarely get that as an answer. Actually, you'll never get that as an answer. Typically, they won't have an answer. They'll be chopping the range of motion because it has become an ego lift. It's become more about how much can be lifted versus proper technique and proper execution. And when you chase the weight and you work and operate from your ego when it comes to weight training, you're just setting yourself up to get injured and to have problems. And that's definitely somewhere that you don't want to go with your training. So squats and deadlifts are by far the 2 best exercises for building leg strength and leg hypertrophy. However, from correcting imbalances and labeling something as the best exercise, those are 2 totally different areas. When it comes to correcting imbalances, it's very often the isolation exercises, the small movements that are key. Because anytime you're trying to correct an imbalance, it requires laser-like focus and hitting specific muscles and specific fibers in specific ways to balance a whole part of the body. So for example, if you're trying to correct knee issues, doing a squat or a deadlift will probably be too global. You might have to bring up your hamstrings, and within that specifically, for example, the biceps femoris component of the hamstrings to correct that knee imbalance, for example. So corrective conditioning is a totally different ball game, and when it comes to the best exercise for corrective conditioning, it's totally dependent upon the individual, what the objective is, their posture, their weaknesses, their imbalances. So to say something is the best exercise for corrective conditioning is pretty much impossible because it's person dependent. When it comes to aesthetics, so improving how the muscle looks, squats and deadlifts, once again, they're very global movements. If you want to work predominantly the inner component of your quadriceps, you might choose a specific exercise where you'll target more that part of the muscle versus squats and deadlifts, which are just more global movements. So most people like to label something as the best exercise for this or the best exercise for that, and squats are often hailed as the #1 exercise, but you have to put into context. What's the goal? What's the objective? Who's the person? Those parameters will define the other parameters that you select. Exercise selection, reps, sets, tempo, technique, range of motion, all of that stuff. So squats are excellent, and they definitely should be included in a lot of routines. However, seeing as how most people have postural abnormalities, structural imbalances, focusing more on unilateral training would be a better idea for most people in the beginning phases of training to balance out right and left sides of the body to ensure proper symmetry and proper posture before engaging the body with bilateral exercises like squats, like deadlifts, like leg press. When your body is nicely balanced, those bilateral movements, which basically means using both your legs at the same time, are excellent. However, what I've seen in my practice working with clients is that most people have structural imbalances and postural issues. And when you have structural imbalances and postural issues, you're going to be better off spending your time on unilateral movements, working one leg at a time to balance out right-left strength, right-left symmetry. And once you have that balance between both sides, then you'll benefit most from bilateral training. So to answer the question, are squats the best leg exercise? No. Are they a great exercise? Absolutely. But it's dependent on the person, the case, the objective, etc. All right, let's go to the second question for episode number 5. The next question is, how do I work out if I have shoulder pain? Shoulder pain is something that plagues a lot of people. One of the reasons is that the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. What that basically means is that it has a lot of mobility and a lot of movement. And anytime you have a joint where you have a lot of mobility, you equally will have instability built in. So the rule is, the more mobility and movement you have within a given joint, the less stability you have within that joint. And one of the reasons why a lot of people have shoulder issues is they focus mostly on compound and complex movements like bench pressing bilaterally or shoulder pressing bilaterally, but they're not working on the smaller, more intrinsic movements such as building up the rotator cuff muscles, the small muscles of the shoulder, building up the posterior deltoids, building up the rhomboids. These are the muscles that are often neglected that are absolutely essential for proper stability of the shoulder joint and shoulder complex. Usually the best exercises are the ones we're not doing. We tend to find a certain group of exercises that we like and enjoy and stick to those and do them over and over and over and over again. The only problem with that is we're always soliciting the same movement patterns neurologically and the same muscles and muscle fibers, and we inevitably encounter what are called overuse injuries. And basically what overuse injuries are, they're these nagging little pains that seemingly creep up on us and come out of nowhere, that bother us and hinder our training and end up plaguing us and preventing us from doing all kinds of other exercises. And that stems large in part due to the fact that we're doing the same things over and over again with the same technique, range of motion, sets, reps, rest period, tempo, all that stuff. So one of the keys when it comes to how do I work out if I have shoulder pain, ideally you would want to avoid getting there. So when it comes to avoiding getting into the territory of having shoulder pain in the first place, switching up your program regularly is key. So switching the exercises every 4 to 6 weeks, playing around with the range of motion, playing around with the tempo, playing around with the angles, with the sets, activating different muscle fibers. These are things that need to be considered in your program. Like I said, most people gravitate towards the exercises they know, they're familiar with, and have given them results. However, there is a limiting threshold to that. What I mean by that is, anytime you do any exercise, you'll get the most bang for your buck and the most benefit in the beginning. But what really training is, it's an adaptation process. What that means, as you work out, your body adapts to the stress. And if you do the same exercise over and over again, your body basically gets really good at that exercise. It gets used to that, and you're always having inflammation in the same areas stemming from these repetitive patterns, doing the same thing over and over again. So one of the ways to combat that is to switch things up regularly. And trust me, there are a lot of different ways that you can switch exercises up. There's a ton of different variations and loading parameters that you can use to change up your training. You can go online on Google, do the research, find that stuff there. You can contact us at Milesfit. We're qualified coaches that can help you out and show you new techniques and new movements and show you how to set up your program and work with you one-on-one to be able to achieve your goals in that department. There's a variety of different ways that you can access information for being able to switch up your workout plan. So preventing shoulder pain would really come from changing up your program, working on those weak muscles that you've been neglecting, all those little details that we often overlook. Now, if you have shoulder pain, going back to the question of how do I work out if I have shoulder pain, the key is to not do things that aggravate your shoulder. This seems like common sense, but as the expression goes, common sense is not that common. So I'll give you a classic example. Most people, when bench pressing, have shoulder pain. Yet, because of the ego, continue to bench press despite the shoulder pain, despite their body giving them the message and the signal, don't work out. Anytime you have pain, that's your body giving you a message that, hey, what you're doing is not good. Don't do that. The funny thing with human beings is that we don't listen to this innate wisdom of the body. We bypass it with the ego. We want to lift the weight, we want to do what we want to do, and we ignore those signals from our body. Always listen to your body. Your body knows best. If you go with your ego, you'll always end up trapped and in pain when it comes to training. So if you have shoulder pain, step number 1 is stop doing anything and everything that causes some degree of shoulder pain. Even if there's an exercise that you absolutely love and you're progressing on it and you want to keep going, don't do it anymore. Anything that causes pain causes inflammation and it slows down the healing process. So step number 1, any and all exercises that cause pain, remove them from your program. Remove the stimulus that's causing inflammation and causing issues. The next step would be to start integrating exercises that are going to reinforce and strengthen any weak muscles. A great concept when it comes to training is a concept called surrounding the dragon. The concept of surrounding the dragon is basically the idea that if you want to protect a muscle or protect a joint, you want to strengthen all of the surrounding musculature to support that particular joint and to give it a good amount of strength. So for example, if your shoulder is causing you pain, you might have great benefit from strengthening your neck, from strengthening your lats, from strengthening your back, from your rhomboids, your posterior delts. All of those surrounding muscles will help tremendously stabilize the shoulder joint. And what's interesting is that if you stay away from the exercises that cause you pain and you start strengthening the surrounding musculature with exercises that don't cause you pain, usually in a period, it depends on the person, of 2, 4, 6 weeks, if you go back to those exercises that were causing you pain and problems, you'll actually see that the pain has reduced significantly and in a lot of cases has been eliminated totally. And then you have the ability to go back to some of those older exercises you were doing previously and start strengthening some of those muscles that you had to put on hold because you had to work on strengthening weak links. So if you have pain, don't let that be an excuse from training. You can always work around your pain. There's always a way. Sometimes you have to be quite creative when it comes to exercise selection and it comes to tempo. Are you going to be using cables, bands, dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever tool you want? There's a lot of different factors to consider, but regardless of the pain you have, those chronic nagging pains, whether it's shoulder, and that goes for knee, lower back, elbow, all that stuff, there is always a way to train and work around that, 100%. So with regard to the question, how do I work out if I have shoulder pain? Number 1, stop doing any and all movements that cause pain. Step 2, start strengthening all the surrounding muscles with exercises that don't cause you pain. And very often these will be exercises that we don't typically do, working all the small stabilizer muscles and segmental components of the body. That's how you really bring stability to a weak area. And of course, another thing you should be doing is going for soft tissue work. There's a variety of different soft tissue modalities out there that you can look into, things like ART, you can look into osteopathy, you can look into deep tissue sports massage therapy, you can look into a variety of neuromuscular therapies. There are a lot of different ways out there to address the body outside of training. And very often for a lot of people suffering from pain, if they look into those modalities to be able to work on the soft tissue and work on the neurophysiology of the body, they'll actually have a lot of relief. Yes, it requires investing a little bit of money, and definitely before you go and just see anyone, do your research, look for referrals, ask around, find good practitioners in your area that you can trust and deliver results when it comes to soft tissue work, so you're not going somewhere and getting ripped off. And by the way, sometimes you see people that are great, but it's just not the right technique for your situation. It doesn't mean that that practitioner is bad. It just means that the tools they had in their toolbox, despite working for many other people, happen to not work for you and your goals. So that just means you have to find somebody else. And very often when it comes to pain, you have to pivot and maneuver to find the right practitioner for your pain in that moment, given whatever circumstances caused that pain. So that's something you sometimes have to deal with, and you don't get your answers right away, but soft tissue work is definitely very, very important when it comes to managing and healing pain. All right, question number 3. Is cardio the best way to lose weight? Most people associate weight training with building muscle mass and cardio with losing weight. That has kind of been precipitated from the 80s with the aerobics movement and the whole Jane Fonda thing. The reality is that any movement burns calories, therefore any movement is really a tool and a gateway to being able to lose weight. Yes, weight training can be used more for building muscle mass, absolutely. It's definitely more versatile than cardiovascular movements like using a treadmill or an elliptical or a bike, for example. However, any movement, anything that burns calories will allow your body to shed pounds, provided, there's a caveat, I have to mention this, provided your nutrition is good. Because let me tell you something, even if you were doing an hour of exercise per day, but you were eating way too much food and way too many calories and too much sugar and processed food and all that kind of stuff, I don't care if you're working out 1 hour a day or 90 minutes a day, you might not lose any weight. So exercise is just a mechanism to burn calories and expend energy and to work towards creating a calorie and energy deficit in the body. However, your nutrition, what you eat, has to match that process and facilitate losing weight. So it's a two-sided coin, training and nutrition. You cannot neglect one or the other. You must look at both to optimize your results when it comes to weight loss. So going back to the question, is cardio the best way to lose weight? The answer is no. No. Movement is the best way to lose weight, and really it's movement that you like and that you enjoy. Because when you enjoy doing an activity, let's say that's going for a run, and you don't like weight training, for example, well, if you love running, you'll run. And if you run, you'll burn calories and you'll put yourself in the right environment to be able to lose weight. So I always say that the best exercise for burning calories and losing weight and getting in shape is the one you love doing. Because if you love it, you'll do it. And if you do it day in, day out, week after week, month after month, year after year, you'll get those results you're looking for. The best exercise is whatever you stick to long term, which will yield those sustainable results. Now, it's true that there are some activities and parameters which are better for achieving weight loss. So for example, using weight training in a circuit style fashion, alternating upper and lower body movements, that is very effective for getting people in shape. And as a matter of fact, we use that style of training, which we call metabolic conditioning, at the Milesfit facility in Montreal when we train our clients. Metabolic conditioning is classically a style of training where you might be doing exercises in a circuit fashion for 20 to 30 seconds of high intensity, high effort work with 10 to 15 seconds rest in between for 8 to 12 exercises. And you might repeat that for 2 to 3 rounds. That type of training is very, very, very effective for shedding the pounds and also developing performance. Now, of course, you always have to start at whatever level you're at. And very often for people, when they do that style of training, they might be a little sick in the beginning because their body has not been acclimatized to that kind of training. However, when it comes to working out, you always have to start at your level and progress accordingly. I'm just giving an example of a very effective way to lose weight and get in shape using the metabolic conditioning training modality. But for someone just starting out, you always want to start out with activities that you like, that you enjoy, because you'll adhere to them, you'll do them, and that will develop the momentum to be able to start losing weight, start getting in shape. After that, you can always fine-tune and adjust and pick and choose specific elements. But in the beginning, it's all about momentum. Momentum is the magical element that drives results. Without momentum, you won't have that continuity to your training, and you won't set yourself up to have that sustainability and the ability to push through the times when they get tough. So momentum is key, and the way you do that is by starting off strong, and the way you start off strong is by doing activities that you love. If you love playing badminton, play badminton. If you love jogging outside, jog outside. If you love using your seated bike, use your seated bike. So with regards to the question, is cardio the best way to lose weight, which basically means is using the elliptical machine or the bike or the treadmill, are those the best ways to lose weight? No. It's really what you want to do. That's what's best for you. Then you can fine-tune things and adjust and add in metabolic conditioning and advanced styles of training that optimize your physiology, that optimize fat loss and performance. But the beginning stages of training are much different than the intermediate and advanced stages of training. So a key component to remember is who are you, where are you on your journey, and what will benefit you most. And that's one of the reasons why working with a coach is so valuable, because a coach has been down that road themselves, and a coach has worked with tons of clients and tons of people and have seen what works, what doesn't work, and seen how people respond and adapt, and how to shift and pivot and maneuver and navigate based on what's happening with those people's bodies. So, quick little summary of those 3 questions. The first question was, are squats the best exercise for leg training? No. The best exercise for leg training is whatever you need for your goals in that moment in time. And by the way, from moment to moment in our life, our goals, objectives, and needs shift. So because our goals, objectives, and needs shift, the best exercise will also change, shift, and evolve based on our needs in whatever moment in time we find ourselves in. So the best exercise is the one that you need for whatever your goals are. If you have knee pain, the best exercise is the one that's going to help bring the most stability to the knee joint. If you have aesthetic issues, you want to bring up a certain part of your leg for the look, well, there might be a best exercise to do that. If you're looking to build muscle or strength globally, there's a best exercise for that. So squats are not the end-all, be-all of leg training. They're just a tool in your toolbox, and that tool really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Question number 2, how do I work out if I have shoulder pain? In a perfect world, you try and avoid getting there. If you have shoulder pain, avoid any and all movements that aggravate your shoulder joint, and start doing movements that you have not normally done, movements that you've neglected, and movements to strengthen surrounding musculature to add support to the shoulder to give it that strength to be able to deal with that pain and to allow the healing process to take place. And finally, is cardio the best way to lose weight? No, the best way to lose weight is to be able to stick to a routine that's realistic for you, that you can do over time, which means finding a way to train that you love and enjoy, as well as finding a way to eat, so nutrition, that works for your lifestyle and works for your taste buds, and a way of eating where you don't feel deprived. So guys, this has been episode number 5 of the Ask Miles show. I hope you enjoyed the answer to those questions. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in, and I'll see you at episode number 6. Thanks guys, and have an awesome weekend. Take care.